In the early hours of the morning of 26th of February 1960, an Alitalia DC-7 lifted off from Shannon's runway 05, hardly 1 mile from where I'm standing right now in Clonlohan Cemetery. The aircraft originated in Naples, transited to Rome, flown to Shannon to refuel to make an onward transatlantic flight to Gander. Within the next few hours, 34 passengers and crew lost their lives. There were 18 survivors. The 18 survivors suffered extreme burning and life-changing injuries. This then is the story of Alitalia flight number 618. While it is impossible here within the confines of a limited documentary to document the stories of the 52 on the night, what we have chosen instead is to focus on a limited number. This information has been provided to us by Mr. Jerry McMahon, and we express our gratitude for it.
While it is interesting to look at the air crash forensically, what is more fascinating are the personal stories of some of the crew members and passengers which were on board Flight Italia 618 that night.
Julia Roosevelt Pallavicini Creel was 21 when she died in the Alitalia crash. Julia was a relative of the President Theodore Roosevelt. She was born in March 1948. Julia was a society debutante. She married a US Marine, a Captain James Randall Creel, in 1959. At the time of the crash, she was only 8 months married. Captain James Randall Creel, her husband, was a US Marine helicopter pilot for JFK and President Eisenhower, and at the time of the accident was on aircraft carrier duty with the Marines in the Caribbean. Alitalia Flight 618 had an unusually large crew on board. One of the reasons for this is that some of the crew were deadheading, that is to say that they were moving from one location to another. The captain of the aircraft was Captain Luigi Gentile from Bari in Italy. At the time of the crash, he was 40 years of age. Captain Gentile was a decorated World War II aviator flying with the Regia Aeronautica, the Italian Air Force. His bomber was downed over the Balearic Islands by a group of RAF Hawker Hurricanes. He managed to get the aircraft to land on the sea, clambered out of the cockpit, swam to the rear door, inflated the dinghy and got all of his fellow crew members out, and for this he received accommodation. Of Alitalia Flight 618's crew of 12, only one survived, and that was a male steward. A Mrs. Luigini Lisi, who was a stepmother to 2 boys who died on the crash. That was John, aged 5, and Frank, aged 2. The 2 lads were travelling with their stepmom home to New York to their father, John Lisi, who, when he discovered what had happened in Shannon, flew directly to retrieve his son's bodies. The Reiner family were a Hungarian Jewish family traveling from Tel Aviv to the United States. On board were 6: Yolanda, David, Martha, Edessa, Yehudi, and Judith. Of the family of 6, 2 perished in the crash. Noel, it's a pleasure to talk to you today, and thanks very much for inviting us into your home. You were really generous with this.
Well, thank you for coming, that's all I have to say.
When we ran the article in the Clare Champion, it literally was just taking a chance that somebody would respond. So,
did you get any other replies?
Got some other replies. Got a reply from a lady, believe it or not, who was she was born on the night of the crash.
Okay.
And her mother, this is in Ennis Hospital, and her mother was describing the awful burn victims coming in and out. So,
sure,
she had a fairly memorable birthday, so to speak.
yeah.
But anyway, Noel, you've lived in this area all your life.
I was born in this area, just my own house, where I was born, just down the field there.
Right.
We built this new house in 1967.
67.
I married my wife in 1966. We're 57 years married today.
That's no mean achievement.
It's not in these day and age.
You could get a medal for that. Let's take you back for a few minutes to the night of the 26th of February 1960, early in the morning. So if you could just give us some reflections.
Okay, well, on the night of the crash, it was about 2 o'clock in the morning. I was playing music at a barn dance. And the barn dance was held close now to where the Lufthansa, now Atlantic Aviation hangar is. So we were in the middle of a siege of minutes, and the next thing this pale white face arrived at the window, hardly able to talk, but just, I knew there was something up. And at the same time the crash siren went off, and likely had their crash siren at any time, because it has a bad feeling all the time. And it goes off in that time now even. It's only because of the time, it goes off at a certain time every day. But there's just something about that crash that brings me that to the night. So anyway, we went out and we saw in the distance a big blaze. So we went up to the top of the hill, and everyone came out, and we went up, and the women started praying because we knew it was a crash because of the siren and everything. So myself and Tommy Fitz, who had his car parked outside the door, handy enough, because he was dispensing refreshments from the booth, if you know what I mean.
Right.
This is at 2 a.m. now. Every place is just closed.
God, you're really burning the midnight oil in those days.
So we head off, myself and himself in the car. I put my card in the back of the car, and we head off in the direction of the blaze. And I can still hear the empty bottles rattling in the back. So we arrived, we head in the direction, I knew it was in the direction of Clonlow somewhere, but we didn't know exactly where. So we kept going on the road until we came close enough to it. There was only a field between us and the road. And as we got out of the car, we could hear the screams and the shouts, and it was all foreign language.
God.
And there was the big blaze had gone down at this stage now. But there was small fires burning everywhere. Everywhere was on fire.
Wow.
Passengers were on fire, luggage was on fire, suitcases were on fire, tyres were on fire, fuel was on fire, and the smell was something I still have this day.
Wow.
Because there is something about it, I don't know what it is, but anyway. So we came on the scene right there, and there was bodies strewn everywhere. There was some people walking around, funnily enough. And what I remember most is one guy walked out of the tail, and he hadn't a scratch on him, and he had his perfect suit and everything. And there wasn't a scratch on him, I remember that well.
Yeah, because I think the tail was the only recognisable part of it left.
The tail was left, yeah, the tail, and there was legs sticking out from under the tail where they had been thrown clear, and the tail rolled over on top of them.
Good God.
A little bit further away with the cockpit. So a couple of them went over to the cockpit, and there was 3 guys inside, and I knew 2 of them were dead, but just, you could tell that, but there was one fellow inside moaning, Italiano, he was saying over and over. He actually died later on, but anyway, I remember that so well. And the doctor arrived in, and then other people from around the place arrived.
That's Dr. Flynn you're talking, William Flynn.
Dr. William Flynn is right, he was our doctor at the time too. He arrived, and there was an officer, I think her name was Erin O'Dea.
Irene O'D is
Everyone
correct.
helped as best they could. I helped with a few. I remember pulling a young lady out from under the seat, and the seat was on fire. And I remember trying to get her out, and the next thing she let this awful scream out of her. And when I looked down, I saw that her leg was blackened from the knee down. And she left the leg after her, but anyway, she passed out at that stage. So the doctor came over, and I think they carried her away somewhere.
She lost the leg.
I'm not sure what happened to her after that. She was pretty badly burned. But she had been trapped under a burning seat.
God.
So anyway, that was the scene.
Yeah, it's fairly horrific. If I could just straighten out some facts with you as someone who was there on the scene. All of the accounts I have read over the years tell me that the aircraft never got more than 200 feet altitude, and it started to turn left and it came down into turn.
I can explain that, very easily. It took off on the far side of the main runway, which was runway 06 at the time. And normally when the plane takes off, they have to stay on a runaway heading for quite a while until they get high enough to make a turn. That's if they're westbound. Mm-hmm. And they turn left when they're westbound, but this guy turned too soon, and the left wing hit the south wall of the graveyard, flattened 3 or 4 headstones along the way, barely missed the ruins of the church, and took another scalp out of the outside wall again. And then the hauler came to it. You could tell this. I went up on the following day, so that's why I knew all that, because it was easy to see. Mm-hmm. There was very little wreckage around the graveyard itself, maybe a bit of a propeller and a bit of a wing. And where he skidded in for about 200 or 300 yards down an open field. And it's when he hit that ditch at the end of that the whole thing blew up. And you can remember fuel tanks were full. So you can imagine it made a quite blaze, but it didn't last very long. The blaze didn't last very long.
Yeah, I think it taken on 7,000
tanks would have been full because it was heading west.
Yeah.
But I remember another thing about it, there was a cargo of sunglasses on it, and there was a lot of people wearing
I knew you were going to come to the sunglasses.
And he thrashed into a flock of sheep as well and killed some of the sheep. And when the priest came, anointing some of the bodies, he anointed a couple of sheep as well. It was hard to tell what was what.
My God, that was Father Comerford, was it?
I didn't forget his name, I forget his name. This was all a long time ago. But I can still remember that as if it was only yesterday.
My God, and you would have been in your early 20s?
I would have been. I was born in 1936, so you can calculate it from that.
Right. Yeah, that truly is an extraordinary scene that you're...
That's the scene I'll never forget. The scene I'll never forget. I can still see it actually, as if to this day. There was fire burning everywhere. There were bushes on fire even.
I tried to do a small drone flight there today, but I'm blocked because of geo restrictions. Anyway, I did some filming there. Beyond the graveyard, there's a field, and it dips down a little bit. Some of it looks like it's been converted to forestry in the last couple of years. Is it down there?
No, that's on the right.
That's on the right hand side.
On the left of that field.
Oh, yeah, okay. So it still is an open field.
It's an open field, yeah, except for the ditch where he hit the ditch at the end of it, and then the whole thing just blew up.
Yeah, I've got some Google Maps of that, and that'll find our way into the
documentary. Did I trace of anything there now?
That's a good question, and that's one of the questions I wanted to ask you, Noel. Is did you lift anything out of the wreckage, or just to keep?
I brought some bit of I think it's an alarm clock or something, but I don't know where it is now.
Wow. Okay. When I did my first documentary, which was looking at all of the air crashes, I got a phone call from a chap in Carlow. And his father was an APO fire officer, and he was up at that. And again, it's something that couldn't possibly happen today. The two lads had the wingtip of the aircraft, the left wingtip of the aircraft, in the garage. So they sent me a photograph of it. So I'm trying to connect up with them to see if I could get them to come down from Carlow with that wingtip, just to bring it, just to photograph it out at the graveyard. So whether that's going to happen or not, I don't know. We'll see how we get on.
Sure, yeah, I understand you.
It's they've got about 1 foot of it. So.
Anyway, that was it.
Okay, that's.
How's that? Is that any good to you?
Fantastic. I couldn't have asked for more than that.
my mother and father went to the dance that night.
Okay.
It was what we call a Rand dance. When the Rand boys went out, they collected money,
Right.
and anyone that contributed were invited to the Rand dance, which was held a couple of months after, like, you know, it was organised.
It was only February anyway.
Yeah,
so it wasn't that long.
yeah. So, but it was, they were at the dance, and myself and my sister and my brother were left with my grandparents, who lived just in Stonehall,
Oh, yeah,
over
yeah.
the road, and we were up, of course, we were up making noise and everything else, and our grandparents trying to keep us quiet and get us into bed.
Little
and that
savages,
kind of,
yeah.
yeah. But late at night, there was a big bang, I remember, and it woke us all up. And
Be nearly 2 o'clock in the morning.
yeah, it would. And then there was lots of cars coming up the road. You know, there was a real activity. You wouldn't hear that many cars that time.
Yeah.
You know, in the 60s, and coming back up that road. These were all coming back from the dance, like they were on their way to the crash. And my father dropped my mother off at the house, and she came up to us and put us into bed, and made sure we were going to stay in bed, because my mother was a formidable woman.
Right.
You know? But the following day then, you know the way now that crashes are all sealed off and everything is...
Oh, there was none of that at the time.
None of that whatsoever. The place was full of people who came out to see the accident and the site of the accident, and it was everybody from the village in Newmarket and Fergus came out, and people came from Shannon. Now Shannon wasn't a town at all that time, like, you know, but a lot of people came out. And my father worked for Aer Lingus. He was a foreman loader, and they were there with tractors and trailers, and they were collecting parts of the aeroplane and bits out of the aeroplane and putting it into the trailer and bringing it back in and it was full of sunglasses. There was
I knew you were going to mention sunglasses. It's in Limerick and it's in anywhere else. You need to mention Alitalia.
Oh yeah, it was a big consignment of but they were very feminine sunglasses, like, you know. And for years after, you'd see the big truckers going down the road with these feminine sunglasses on them, like, you know.
You mean there was sun in Ireland back then?
Well, very little of it, but it was there. But at that time, my mother brought us down to see the accident, and my father was there, and we met him there, and we got a couple of pairs of sunglasses off him. I don't know whether that was right or whether it would be.
Did you pick up any other wreckage at the time?
No. I was small, and I wouldn't have been let too close to be honest with you.
Yeah,
You know?
pretty gruesome. By
Twice,
all accounts, a lot of burning.
Yeah.
A lot of burning.
A lot of smell of flesh and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's. Isn't it funny that the sense of smell is the one
that lasts
over the years that lasts. Yeah.
And
a lot of sheep killed as well.
A lot of sheep killed there was, and some of I don't know, you saw the graveyard back down there. There's a row of it's an old graveyard. It's a real old graveyard, but there's a relatively new row of headstones. You can see them, and that's where the plane took the top off the headstones. And it actually didn't crash into the graveyard. It went beyond it.
Yeah.
It went beyond it. And
which makes sense, because it would have been doing 200 miles an hour.
Yeah. It went way beyond it, and that's why they brought the people down this field here.
Right.
Because it was easier to get out that way, and it was easier for the ambulances to get into the field here to.
Yeah. Do you have any memories of a Father Comerford from Shannon?
There was a Father Comerford in Newmarket.
Maybe he was Newmarket.
Shannon wasn't a parish that time. It was part of Newmarket and Fergus parish.
Oh right, yeah. Maybe that's it then.
Yeah.
And of course, the airport doctor, Dr. William Flynn, would have been out.
Yeah, he would. Yeah, he was the father now of the two Flynn doctors that are there at the moment.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
He would have been busy 16 months later then. or 18 months with President Airlines,
Yeah.
which was my last documentary,
Yeah.
and another fairly horrific
Yeah.
aviation disaster as well. Look, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
And there was uncles of mine all involved in it as well, because they were all at the dance, because they were around the area.
Yeah.
So they all came, and they were all, I mean, that time everybody gave a hand, like, you know. Now they wouldn't let anybody near the place, like.
I got when I brought out my first documentary, which, as I said, focused on all of the crashes. The second one was just President. But when I brought out that first one, I actually got a phone call from a guy in Carlow, and his dad was an APO, a fire officer, police officer, and believe it or not, a few days after that, they sent me a photograph of the wingtip of Alitalia.
Yeah.
In other words, that was the wingtip that impacted the ground. But they actually they took it home.
But people were picking up bits and pieces there, like, you know, people were going through it and picking up wallets and stuff like that were left there. You know, the money was of no value because it wasn't. You know, you couldn't use it here, like, you know, Italian lira. But I think most of it was handed over to the guards. The guards collected all of it. They came around. There was who was the sergeant who was here at the time? It wasn't Foley. It was it won't come to me now. But he was the man that made sure that
the flight started in Naples, so it went from Naples to Rome.
Rome to Shannon.
Shannon, and took on 7,000 gallons.
Yeah.
Which I think she was only on the ground 45 minutes.
That's all. That's all.
Yeah. There was they were making up the passenger list.
Yeah.
They were obviously counting these charred bodies for the greater part. They were out by one, and they knew he was a child, and I think, as was relayed to me, showed up about 3 weeks later in a ditch, right? They thought it was a rabbit that was burned. That was the child. It was just a black ball, you know. Savage stuff.
It was, and like I said, the safety precautions or exclusion areas and weren't even, I mean,
different age.
Different age. You can imagine now these guys were mostly local farmers or working in the airport, and they were at a dance, and they all just piled out and went straight in to help, like, whenever they could, like, you know, in whatever way they could. So, I mean, I'd say the services wouldn't have been as efficient or sophisticated as they are today, like, you know.
It's just that's the historic time frame it happened in. Okay, John, John, it's been a pleasure talking to you.
You're welcome.
Policemen, airmen, ambulance workers, Italian Airlines folk with long, dramatic blue overcoats. But now time's up, and this is John Ross at Shannon, returning you to the studios in Dublin.
Much like the President Airlines disaster, which was again to take place in Shannon some 18 months after, no single identifiable cause of the accident was ever pinpointed, although over the years some theories have abounded. Some 10 years ago, a monument was placed on the outside of the Clonlohan Cemetery commemorating the loss of the 34 passengers and crew of Alitalia 618 in 1960. It is indeed a fitting tribute, and its caption reads, "Gone but not forgotten." And this is the story of Alitalia. Along the way, making these documentaries on air disasters at Shannon Airport, it's always been a shot in the dark. At the start of the process, I never know who I'm going to come up against. This time around, my interviewees have been nothing short of fantastic, and to them and to everybody who has helped me in my journey researching these aviation disasters, I extend my thanks. Our next project is likely to focus on the 1954 Triton KLM crash, so make sure you like and subscribe to this channel and stay in touch. Talk to you soon.